Are you sure you want to do this? My mother asked as she smoothed the sleeve of my blazer, her hands trembling like the notes of a troubled piano. It was the night before my pastry school jury in Lowe's Angels, and the kitchen table was between us like a cold barrier. My siblings hovered behind her, eyes fixed anywhere but at me. I tried not to hear the whispering from the living room, something about how this wouldn't last, about how no one in our family made a living out of sugar and dreams. I had practiced the tart, my signature lemon meringue, so many times that the taste of zest and sugar was permanently etched at the back of my tongue. But as I stood before the jury, four renowned chefs dressed in immaculate whites, my hands buzzed. The prep table in front of me felt like an altar. Above me, fluorescent lights clicked and hummed without mercy. I unwrapped my chilled dough, my fingers fumbling. The rolling pins slipped and thudded to the floor, and everyone's heads turned. The room pulsed with my heart's pounding. I tried to tell myself it was just another recipe, another tart, the same one I'd made in the cramped kitchen of my childhood home, while my father shook his head. But this time the dough clung and stuck, the butter seeping through in sticky blotches. My hands wouldn't do what I told them. As I poured the lemon curd, my arm jerked, it sloshed over the sides. A sharp hiss as sugar dust burned on the burners. A judge stifled a sigh. I could feel eyes heavy with appraisal and fatigue. I piped the meringue, but my grip was uneven. The peaks drooped as if apologizing for existing. I slid it into the oven and clenched my fists, hoping heat would redeem my mistakes. When I plated it, the crust crumbled at the edges, the lemon curd slumped, the meringue was more soup than cloud. I stared at it, throat pinched. The judges cut into the tart with ritualistic gravity, fork tines scraping porcelain. One set down his utensil. Unrefined, he said after swallowing, underbaked. Too sweet, grunted another. Are you sure this is your passion? The last one asked, voice leaden. That was the worst cut of all. Outside, I pressed my forehead to the brick wall, breathing in the city's exhaust and centuries of failed hopes. I thought maybe in another life I could have been content like my siblings, accountant, nurse, hardware store worker, people with jobs that were always understood. When I came home, my father cleared his throat and poked at the newspaper. Well, he murmured, everyone runs into walls eventually, best not to bash your head too long, huh? Later that night, I hid in the dark kitchen with my hands in the flour bin, letting the cool, silky grains run through my knuckles as if searching for courage. But my body felt hollowed, my veins running dry with shame. All I could hear were those words, "Are you sure this is your passion?" After the jury, I stopped baking for a while. Boxes of unsold bakeware gathered dust in my closet. Invitations to family dinners arrived, but the laughter at the table always snagged whenever I walked in. My older sister whispered, "Remember when James almost burned down Le Cordon Bleu?" My cousins giggled. I smiled, lips thin, and busied myself with dishes. Eventually, I answered a Craigslist ad for a diner on Pico Boulevard. No pastry, no creativity, just flipping pancakes and scooping ice cream for truckers at dawn. I watched lemon pies come out of the freezer, slap onto white plates, and leave the pass as anonymous as all my unspoken ambitions. One day I burnt a pancake by accident, but no one cared, no jury. The stakes were nothing, and so was I, but the city's pulse doesn't let go that easily. One afternoon, an old woman, lips pursed with disappointment, sent back her slice of pie. I apologized and offered to try again. She shrugged, "It's just sugar, kid, don't fuss." But I fussed anyway. On my next day off, I made her a tart, my lemon meringue from memory, in the back kitchen of the diner. I used canned lemons because that's all I had and whipped the meringue by hand till my arms ached. She took one bite and blinked. "This is surprising," she said. A crack, not quite approval but not rejection either. The months blurred. I pitched desserts at restaurants and bakeries, washed dishes for pastry chefs too tired to listen to me. I worked late, swept floors, soaked my hands in bleach until my fingerprints faded. But I tried, over and over, in borrowed kitchens and cluttered apartments. Every ruined tart made me more stubborn. Word got around after a pastry cook at an upscale bistro at the edge of West Hollywood quit his shift mid-service. The chef panicked. "Anyone know how to bake tarts?" he demanded. A friend pointed at me. "She's obsessed with lemons," he joked. I stammered my way into the job. The ovens were too hot, the kitchen too noisy. But by then I'd learned not to flinch. I made 3 tarts, then 5, then 10 each night. The chef critiqued everything: crusts too thick, curd too thin, meringue too burnt. I listened, rebuilt, adjusted. I learned about tempering eggs and coaxing color from sugar flames. I started waking up wanting to try again. Failure became routine, so did improvement. For a while, this chef shouted at me as if to sand down every soft edge I had left. He threw a tart plate once and it shattered. I picked it up and tried again. There were days I walked home in the LA dawn with my fingernails crusted in dough, body aching, but some ember in my chest refused to die. I never heard my family's opinions, but I knew what they'd say. Every voicemail from my mother was the same, soft, "Let us know if you come home." But I stayed, scrimping pennies, taking buses across the city whenever a chef needed an extra hand for a wedding cake or a birthday torta. I messed up more than I succeeded, but every now and then a customer would peek into the kitchen and ask, "Did you make this?" I'd nod. Their smile, just quick and genuine enough, lifted me above the old heaviness. Years passed. I learned from anyone who would teach me. Old Armenian matriarchs in Glendale patting phyllo with oil, Salvadoran bakers who told me cinnamon was the secret to caramel. Late at night, I read French cookbooks in the back of laundromats, memorizing the ratios that brought pastries alive. By my late 20s, I'd earned a spot as pastry chef at a new restaurant on Melrose, a place with an open kitchen that let guests watch my every move. My first service was a tightrope walk, every eye in the house a reminder of judges and family dinners from another world. But by then, heat and pressure were home to me. The guests ate quietly, studious, evaluating. When the reviews started to come, they called my tarts nostalgic, ambitious, bright enough to wake up a memory. I let myself smile just for a second, standing in the walk-in by lemon crates, my chest warmer than it had been in years. I kept working, saving every dollar I could. I didn't look back, not even for holidays or birthdays. Home was always a phone screen away, too close and too far. Then one spring, a vacant storefront on a sunny block in Los Feliz popped up on a listing. It was chipped at the corners, all echoes and sharp angles, but the morning light glowed across the floor like hope. I signed the lease that week. Opening my bakery nearly broke me. The money stretched thinner than any dough I'd rolled. My hands shook when it came to ordering flour, sugar, eggs. But the first morning, as I spread meringue over rows of tarts, I forgot to be afraid. I looked through the shop window and saw people peek in, curious, then hungry. Some left with tarts cradled in white boxes, the lemon scent trailing after them. One by one, faces I'd never met became regulars. A florist from around the corner brought her grandkids, a film student came every Saturday, and a bus driver ordered a dozen tarts each month to take to her mother's retirement home. Joy slipped back into my life, quiet but real. I called my mother, voice unsteady. "I opened a bakery," I said, silence then a careful, "I hope you're happy, Jame." After I hung up, I sat behind the bakery's counter, squeezing a lemon to watch its oil bead on my fingers. I tasted it, puckering, sharp, bright, real. The first year was a tangle of exhaustion, surprise success, and nights spent on the bakery couch under a thin blanket listening to the city's traffic breathe. Then one day, a well-dressed woman marched in, business card extended. "We're organizing a culinary showcase in downtown LA for up-and-coming chefs," she said. "Would you like to participate?" The showcase was 3 weeks later, in a glass-walled exhibition hall with spotlights trained on every smudge and imperfection. I arrived before dawn with crates of lemons and pans. I rolled the dough slowly, feeling the grainy coolness beneath my palms, breathing in butter and sugar. When I piped the meringue, my hands were steady. There was no jury, just a line of hopeful faces waiting for a taste. People kept coming back for seconds. I heard laughter and saw phones snapping photos. A food critic from a glossy magazine took notes, lips pursed in thought. At the end of the day, the organizers handed me a certificate with my name on it and said, "Best in Show." I pressed it to my chest and watched the city melt away outside the window, all pale sunlight and possibility. The news rippled. A local TV segment, a magazine feature, a flood of customers. The bakery's line stretched around the block. On Sundays, I'd lean out the window to watch the city breathing, remembering how once I thought I'd suffocate in my own doubt. Then one evening, as haze settled over the street, a black sedan pulled up. My mother stepped out first, then my father, siblings in tow. They stood at the bakery's door, uncertain. I wiped my hands and walked out, body tense. My father looked at the window, reading my name in script. His voice was distant. "We saw you on television. Your aunt sent us a clip." My siblings looked around. My older sister leaned closer to a display. "Everything looks professional," she said thinly as if testing the word. I forced a laugh, small and unfinished. "Want to try something?" I brought them a tart plated with care, a lemon meringue, the recipe I'd ruined so many years ago. They sat at a reclaimed wood table, the bakery quiet. I poured coffee, my hands shaking, less from nerves, more from wonder that they were here at all. My father lifted his fork, paused. The rest of my family watched him as they always had. He took a bite, chewing slowly. My mother watched anxiously, his head cocked. He swallowed. "It's sharper than I expected," he said at last, eyebrow raised. "But good. It wakes you up." My mother exhaled, my youngest brother grinned and reached for seconds. For a moment there was no old kitchen, no jury, just the sound of family tasting what I'd made with my 2 hands and all my failed attempts. A line began to form and I excused myself. My mother grabbed my wrist gently this time. "Jame," she said, "I'm proud of you." I held her gaze, letting the words settle like sunlight after rain. I worked through the evening, seeing my family take photos at the table, hear their laughter mixing with the hum of customers and the sound of slicing tarts. When the bakery finally emptied and I was left with stacks of flour-dusted pans, I let myself stand at the window alone, watching the Lowe's Angels' Night unspool. Years had passed since my hands shook before a jury, since I stumbled out and thought I'd lost everything. But now, the city, sprawling and indifferent, finally felt like home. I didn't need to ask for anything more. Behind me on the counter, a crumb of lemon tart gleamed under the last light. I popped it into my mouth, felt sweetness and acid burn and soothe, all my failures and all my hope joined together impossibly in every bite. Sometimes passion isn't something you prove in a single moment. Sometimes you live it quietly, stubbornly, until it becomes something no one can deny, until the day you come home and they can taste it for themselves.